I see that some folks were coming in, so I'm expecting a few more to join us as people are arriving home and logging on. So thank you everybody for joining us for the October meeting of the Austin Women's Investing Group. AWIG is a group of women who get together on a monthly basis to talk about investing and finance. My name is Gwen, and myself, along with Lori Watts, who's also on the call tonight, and the group's founder, Sarah Glakas, who can't be here because she is coaching basketball. The three of us make up the volunteer organizing team for the group. And just want to give y'all a little bit of background. I see many familiar names, but there may be a couple of y'all for whom this is your first time joining us. If it is your first time, you may be interested in knowing that Meetup is our events board. That's probably how you found the event details. That's where you'll get access to future meeting announcements, follow-up messages, and those include meeting slides and recording links whenever possible. If you miss a meeting, or if you want to replay a meeting or send the recording of a meeting to somebody else, you can head over to our YouTube page. We have, I think, 3 playlists now: Fundamentals, Deep Dives, and Most Popular. Ashley's video from last year is on the most popular because it was a very fun and energizing conversation about short-term rentals. So finally, our main discussion forum is the private Facebook group. So that's where you can go to drop a question. You can comment on the meeting tonight, what your takeaways were, any questions that you might have for Ashley or for the group. You can post an interesting article that you've been reading. Some folks use it to get recommendations on different financial services that they're looking into, and just use that Facebook group to connect with other members. Now, some logistics for tonight. Y'all may have seen some messages pop up already in the chat box. That chat box is where you can introduce yourself, give us your name, what you do during the day, and what you hope to learn from tonight. This is a place where, we used to have in-person meetings, and those in-person meetings, of course, we had a guest speaker who was up at the front leading the discussion, but it was also full of pretty organic kind of side discussions. You might chat with the person next to you, kind of share that side discussion. This chat box here is sort of our version of a remote side discussion. And I think that Ashley will be able to see it, but if not, if you send a question over or send your thoughts in, Lori and I will be keeping an eye on the chat box, and we'll punt it to Ashley whenever it's relevant to the discussion. If you send a question in and we don't punt it to Ashley, we will circle back around and comb through the chat at the end. So we'll try to make sure that everybody's questions are answered in the Q&A after Ashley's presentation. As I mentioned before, if y'all wouldn't mind keeping your microphones muted until the Q&A, that helps us get a really good quality recording for the YouTube. Oh, yes. Oh, did somebody have a question? All right, so yes, if you can keep your microphones muted. Yep, perfect. Until the end, that helps us get a good quality recording for the YouTube. And then finally, we do want to emphasize, this is essential, nothing said in this group should be taken as individual investing advice. So we're all here to share our knowledge, our experiences with each other, but everyone's situation is different. So if you would like to receive advice specific to your needs, your goals, your risk tolerances, reach out to a professional who can answer your questions within an advisory relationship. All that being said, now we can get to the good stuff. So just really quickly want to intro Ashley. Ashley Brinkman is a returning guest speaker to the group. And like I mentioned, we were super lucky to host her last year on the topic of short-term rentals. So some of you who are joining tonight may have been here for that. You may remember that that was a really lively discussion. Ashley is wonderful to have as a speaker because she's super candid. She will shoot you straight. And, if you have questions, definitely stick them in the chat or save them for the Q&A, because she is just such a great resource and she will let you know what's on her mind. So we're super excited to have her back. Can't wait to take a look along with all of you at what trends she's seeing, what is being noticed right now for both buyers and sellers to take note of in the Austin real estate market. So with all that said, Ashley, you've got the floor. You can take us away.
Thank you for having me. And I am a pretty informal person. So if you have questions, you don't even have to put it in the chat. If you want to unmute yourself, and I wouldn't mind seeing you and talking it through. I'm not much of a slide person, but I decided to go ahead and make a slide. So can y'all, I'm kind of not used to Ring Central. Can you see my slides?
We can see your slides.
Okay, cool. Now I need to see it. Okay, so this is me, and I just thought I would take a little bit of information from what so let me back up. Mark Sprague is an economist that a lot of us realtors listen to. Great data, great presentation. So I stole a little of his stuff, but kind of to give you an update of like what was kind of happening in 2022. And then I will go into what I'm seeing now currently and my predictions, but just remember, I'm not an economist and I don't have a crystal ball. I can only tell you what I know from my 15 years of real estate experience. So as you know, like in the market, there's a couple things you want to look at, right? So it's always jobs, GDP, and, usually just opportunity in general, right? And Austin kind of has all of these things. So, we have a lot of recovery, even though it doesn't feel like we were in a recession in 2020, but if you look at this chart here, we did have a big dip, and now we were crawling out of it in 2021, which was crazy. And then 2022. And so it's certainly had an interesting, maybe even adverse effect on the housing market that we didn't really foresee coming. And then now it's interesting because it's correcting, right? I'm sure many of you have heard that. So Texas in general, super popular, super strong, tons of growth. And then you have, because of the job growth and because we don't have a state income tax, we're a very appealing state to live in. So as you know, Texas has been outperforming lots of states, and we've always kind of stayed strong because we have that I am my own republic, I am my own country attitude, which actually served us well during the pandemic, right? Also, I don't plan on getting into politics at all during this discussion, just FYI. So what the biggest thing that we saw happen is when rates went up in June, because we've been printing too much money, we have inflation, we have to simmer the market down, right, from all of our spending. Every time that interest rates move, that's when prices kind of fall down on the housing market. So if it goes up or down, a buyer gains or loses about 12% of buying power each time that happens. And I also just would like to say, in general, what I've learned is it takes 6 to 8 weeks in general for people to get used to new norms. And you think about that in the pandemic, right? When we first had to be stay at home, we went absolutely nuts. Then you flash forward 3 months later and everyone's like, I'm not going back to the office. I love my new at-home life, right? So with the interest rates all of a sudden going from 2.5%, 3%, 4%, now today 6.8%, people went crazy. And everyone feels like, I think, I say this, I think that my generation is a little spoiled because ever since I've gotten out of college, rates have always been below like about 4%. I mean, I'm talking cars, student loans, houses. So we've had a good run for a long time, and now it's kind of time to come out of that hole. I'd also like to say that the 50-year low doesn't do any good, but it is good to know. The 50-year average for interest rate is 7.7%. So we've been historically low for a long time. We still are low. And that's what's kind of causing, I think, an unrest with consumers right now. But we also have an election year coming up. So something that I find interesting in my real estate, career is that every time around November, before an election year, things start kind of stirring up. And usually consumer confidence, no matter what happens during the election year, people get happier and it creates more consumer confidence. So I've found that election years are always pretty good real estate years, and a little bit leading up to it, there's always a lot of unrest. Don't know why, just kind of some of the trends I see. This kind of shows how since 1948 ups and downs of the real estate market. And if you look where 2020 was, I don't know about you, but it didn't feel that way for me, but there were a lot of, layoffs and people affected. And then you see the increase in 2021, what happened after that. And then now we're kind of coming back down on that curve as the market corrects itself. So what is currently happening in Austin? I'm a part of a housing group, forum on Facebook. I'm not going to lie, I'm not a big fan of the guy who puts out the reports, but he puts out great data. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit of an optimist. So I'm not going to have doomsday talk. I'm not going to tell you it's the end of the world and that you should stop investing or anything by any means, because I think we all know with everything, real estate is just like the stock market. Everything is a long-term gain. Sometimes you got to sit and wait it out. Sometimes you kick yourself for not buying sooner or not waiting longer. It is what it is. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to work out. If you're in Austin, we're in a great market, right? So what's currently happening in Austin is prices are finally coming down. So if you see this blue line on this chart, that is 2022. Nothing really comes close to 2021. It was just, it was my best year. It was an anomaly of a year. And so, 2022, early 2022, we come out the gate just still on fire from 2021. So January, February were all great. And then things started to level off. And as the interest rates increased, as you see kind of right here, right when it starts dipping down kind of late May and then June, just a huge fall off. So our numbers, statistically speaking, we're actually still in a seller's market, but Austin's been so hot for so long. I don't think that it feels like a buyer's market. It's certainly acting like a buyer's market. Statistically speaking, a buyer's market is when there is 6 months of inventory. Austin hasn't had 6 months of inventory since for as long as I can remember. And I did get started my real estate career in the crash, right? I had no clue kind of what was going on. I was a fresh new agent ready to take on the world, and there were no houses to sell. There was actually plenty of opportunity. So I'm glad I kind of got to see that and work my way up. And then 2011 is when we were practically recovered. So Austin always remained strong, nationally, I think because of our tech sector, our jobs here, our people want to live here, want to live in Texas. They want to live in Austin versus feeling like they have to, like some other markets, San Fran, New York. So as you can see, the pandemic kind of switched that. So numbers are starting to dip each time interest rates rise. But what I find is the interesting kind of stat that I like to share with people, $1 million house at 3.5%, or an $800,000 house, which is what a lot of those $1 million houses are coming down to, at 6.5% is the same monthly payment. So you can buy now and maybe your rate's 6.8 and you get the house for, today I closed one at 925, or you can wait. They actually locked in at 6, like right at 6 or 5.8. Anyway, they're very volatile right now. Or you can wait and maybe prices come down more, but your interest rate might be higher. I'm not an economist by any means. And I did talk to my good friend Shay, who sells a lot today too, just laying like, am I crazy, or are we kind of on the same page here? And I foresee rates kind of going up, and then all 2023. And then maybe if they kind of come back down a little bit, it'll cause a little frenzy of people buying again. But the good news is that there's a lot of opportunity. Let's see here. I have another one. So the rolling 30-day average sales price report. So again, the blue line here is 2022. Austin's still strong, and our values are still up there. So what I see a lot in this market, if I'm being honest, is a lot of greed. We've had this crazy market where a lot of markets don't even increase, 6% year to year. As a nation, went up 30% last year and the year before, but we've always been higher than average year over year. So what I see now, sometimes are sellers getting bent out of shape that they, should have sold 6 months ago. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. You still have $200,000 of equity in your house. That's a lot. So what I guess I gather from that, or what I would, if you want to buy, I say buy. If it aligns with your goals, you have the money, and you can afford the monthly payment at the rate that it's at, then I say buy. If you want to move up buy, which means kind of get a nicer house, you are probably going to be paying more. You are most likely going to be paying more if you had a great interest rate on that first house. So if you need the equity, it's a great time to sell. But what I'm seeing as far as selling goes is your house does have to look good. So you got to take a look at everything else that's on the market. Is my house priced better than that? Do I offer more value than the other houses? And am I looking great on the market? So the days of putting like a piece of shit on the market and sticking a sign in the yard and it going for 100K over asking 12 offers is gone. So I really have to sit down with my sellers. I did this still in the market in the pandemic as well. You want to maybe make some updates. You want it to look good. It needs to stand out. And for example, I'm getting like way off topic, so I hope you don't mind. But for example, we had a house that appraised last year, like July, August, at the peak of the market, 2021, appraised for $665. They took money out of the house. They did improvements. We listed at $625 and we got an offer in 3 days. Now the average right now is around 21 to 30 days homes sitting on the market. So we got it under contract in 3 days. And so that's why I just stress to people, it's super important to be priced correctly, to have those upgrades, to be looking great when you are on the market. And if you want to sell, a lot of the buyers I'm working with right now are, the good news is they're serious buyers. So people who are buying right now in the buyer pool aren't just the ones who could hobby buy or just buy an investment because rates were low and they had the money. It's serious buyers who are looking to get in a house who can pay, right? Who can pay with the interest rates being where they're at. It is difficult. I mean, again, we had a closing today. My clients were looking Central Austin back in March, earlier this year. And I mean, we're talking 1.4, up Shoal Creek for just rough houses that needed still a lot of work. And then we just got them under contract for 50K under list price. Great house, nothing, they don't have to touch anything. It's move-in ready, still in Central Austin. So that's why I say there's opportunities right now, because I think it's not a bad time to buy. I just personally purchased as well. So those are kind of my thoughts. But I would say if you're a first-time buyer and you don't have that much money, it may not be the best time for you to buy. I would say I would maybe advise saving up more money and feeling really comfortable with your monthly payments. I think the good news is that taxes aren't going to keep going outrageously high in Austin, but I do think you want to feel good about your monthly payment, because 3.5% and 6%, there is a big difference. So it all depends on the pricing of the house. What else was I going to share with y'all? This one's a little harder to see, I know, because it's so tiny. But I just wanted to share. So if you look at, I'm going to just point out Travis County in general, 2022, 1 million, average sales price. 2021, it was 735, right? So we've had these huge changes. And then now you look at, in the last, just recently, right? 784, from 714 to 785. But when you look at, in general, like all of them all together, especially the outer line counties, Williamson and whatnot, you have a little bit change where we're finally coming down off of the pricing. I wanted to talk about, rental market. I'm going to touch on that real fast. Rental market's really interesting. You would think that because not a lot of people are buying right now and they're kind of holding on to their properties and whatnot, that the rental market would be crazy. But me personally, I have not really experienced that. I have a couple good listings, and it's kind of like the housing market where it better be freshly painted and looking good and priced right for it to move. Otherwise, a lot of people are just staying put. So that's kind of interesting. But I think that what I'm also seeing, so regarding new construction, if you are buying a new home, those builders are going crazy. It's a great time to buy a new home, but I say that with depends on the area, depends if you want to be out that far, because most new construction neighborhoods are kind of on the outskirts, right? You know, dripping in Liberty Hill and maybe up in Georgetown and whatnot. They are dying to get new contracts in. So it's a great time for incentives. Whereas 6 months ago, they didn't even want to pay realtors, and now they're begging us to bring people to them, right? So I've been advising my clients that are currently under contract to, we're kind of looking into renegotiating their pricing because they do want to make people happy. So a lot of them are willing to come down on the price. They would rather, and some clients, it almost makes sense. They'd rather lock and relock in at a lower rate and lose their earnest money than stay with the current build because they bought it. So, you know, and their price was locked in at such a peak time. And then it takes, 9 months to build. A lot of builders also work with their own lenders. So they have their own lending company, and they typically are offering right now. I mean, you can buy down the rate, but a lot of builders are like, we have 4.99. So they're eating their cost and offering a lot of incentives to get you in a new home. So if you have been thinking brand new is for me, I don't want to deal with all these issues and whatnot, it's not a bad time. If you are an investor, a lot of the neighborhoods still are not allowing investors. They do that to kind of protect the neighborhood, which I totally understand. And I wouldn't recommend, the ones that do allow investors, I probably wouldn't buy in there only because there's going to be so much competition. I would say, even though it's attractive to buy a new home and you don't have to mess with anything for a good few years, your systems are new, everything's new, I would still say to maybe even spend more, if not the same, and come in closer to the city and get smaller where things are already built out. But that's just my personal preference. I don't know if you want any more slides. I was going to stop sharing and just kind of.
Oh, actually,
yeah. What do we have?
I did have a question about new builds. Lumber is like really expensive now, and I've heard lots of people even have trouble getting some of the like plumbing parts that they need. How is that affecting the new builds?
It's not as bad as it was. A lot of the builders, so if you take it back, so I'm going to PC, right? Pre-COVID, they were putting up 20 houses a month. COVID made things slow down to like maybe 4 houses a month, and you were lucky to get off the wait list and get a new build, right? It is normalized now. I mean, prices are up, but I think the builders are kind of coming down now that things are more available. Labor's more available. So I swear she never barks. And then as soon as I get on a call, she's ready to bark at the joggers going by. Hey, so I think it's kind of just like leveling. It's not as bad as it was. Whereas I feel like last year and the year before, that's all it was an excuse. Oh, we don't have this. It's so short. Everything's taking long. But there are still long lead times on some items, windows and things like that, but not as bad as it was prior.
Thanks. And you also said that some of the new build areas, they put in there, I guess they have like an HOA covenant that says you can't make it into a rental property. I didn't realize that the new building areas were doing that.
Yeah, there are some that have the wait periods. Most HOA neighborhoods are going to have some kind of restriction around it. Usually the restriction is around your time, right? So it's usually a 6-month minimum lease, no short-term rentals. So I know that there's one down south in Buda. And a lot of times the builders will start just selling to owner occupants. They want to make sure you're living there, all that good stuff. And then when they have a little bit left is when they'll open it up to investors. So you kind of want to be careful. It's like, I'm not telling people to commit loan fraud, but it's almost better to buy a house, live in it for a year, and then rent it out, but making sure that it's not one of the ones that gets opened up to a bunch of investors, because what I see sometimes, like neighborhoods like Treviso and whatnot, you have a lot of competition. So it ends up keeping the price kind of down. And there's not a lot of draw. I mean, there is draw, but not as much as there is for city center, right? Location, location, location. Any other like specific thoughts, takes, questions?
Yeah, I'm sure that folks on this call kind of represent, you know, all the different stages. So
Yeah.
some of y'all might be looking to buy, some of y'all might be looking to sell. I'm a tenant. I'm sure there's at least one person on here who, you know, owns a property that they rent out to folks, whether that's short term or longer term. Diane's asking, Ashley, what do you notice rents are doing?
Much like selling a house, I feel like rents are kind of stabilizing right now. I'm not seeing the crazy increases like there were last year. And I think tenants are getting pickier because if they're going to move, same thing with sellers right now. Like I have one house on the east side, looks great, only a few years old, boom, already a couple applications. I have a little bit older off South Lamar, and it's just not getting as much traction as it was before, and we're not getting the same rental amount that we did before either. So we're at 4,000 and we just reduced to 3,800. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm surprised, to be honest, because I figured more people buckling down, not buying, like, oh, I'm going to wait this out, or I'm going to do 6 more months before so let me see. Everyone is seeing what the market's going to do instead of just kind of jumping in and trusting themselves and like, I have a good job and I can afford this. I'm going to get ready. So with that, I think kind of consumer skepticism, there's just kind of a pause right now. So yeah.
So with people just staying put, would that increase demand for rentals? So that's why I would think that the increased demand on rentals would make the price go up.
Well, I feel as though you have a couple factors. We have a lot of people leaving the state, to be honest. And then we have a lot of people not moving here as much as they were before because they're back in the office. So it seems like, yes, there's still demand. It's just not at the rate that it was last year and the year prior.
Are you seeing investors buying less for the rentals? And are you seeing them also unload their rental properties?
That's a good question. I wish I had kind of more clientele to speak to that, but I will say the amount of investors I had last year compared to this year is like crazy. So even though I'm kind of like, well, now you get your choice of a home. So when I have an offer come in on a house now with my sellers, I'm usually like, a bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. Let's work with these people versus, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, I could be like, yeah, we're going to wait a couple days to get back to you. Wait till more offers trickle in. So I would say some investors might be unloading their properties. I think it all comes down to your goals. But I think that if you're cash flowing as an investor, if you're cash flowing or even breaking even and doing well, just hold on to it. It's still going to be increasing in value. So I would say most of my sellers right now that are selling are either moving out of state, want to move up, right? Expecting child number 2, something like that, move up by, or they're just ready to cash out, which is, you can use for whatever goals you have in mind. Does that kind of answer your question? Wish I had a little bit more rental data for you, but I don't right now. I'm sure I can look into it.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering as far as like the short-term rental stuff, because I heard where
short-term rental stuff.
Turned the coin.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone turned the coin.
Short-term rental.
Airbnb.
Yeah. So I manage 11 Airbnbs and I own 2 of those. Kind of last year it took off. And it's kind of nice because between the 11 properties, I have some that just sleep 2 and some that sleep 15 or 16. What I've noticed, numbers are down. numbers are just down. Austin's pretty saturated. There's a lot of competition. And, you know, if you go watch the short-term rental talk, I kind of talk about this, like you have to have a shtick. You've really got to stand out if you really want to make top dollar for your, on your investment. But even, you know, comparing 2021 numbers to 2022 numbers, we're kind of down across the board. And I think that's just, I think there's two things. Number one, June interest rates went up, right? But travel was back in full effect. People are flying now. They're not doing little day trips and just, or doing staycations anymore. They're actually getting out and traveling. And then two, there's just more competition. When you hop on Airbnb, there's just a lot more listings and a lot more choices. And so, and, you know, a lot of people use that to kind of supplement their income. I know I still rent out my house when I travel as well. So it's down, but it's still doing good. I mean, I think 99% of our properties are booked every single weekend. So if you're priced right, you're going to be booked. But I haven't seen anybody sell because I still think it's more lucrative to do short-term rental than it is long-term rental if you have the time. Your return, your ROI is a little bit better.
Thank you.
I hope. Yeah, no problem. Oh no, what else? Trying to think of other like, oh, I can touch on the luxury market a little bit. I'm not a big luxury agent, but I did call one prior to this to just kind of like get some feelers. And what we were talking about is, and she owns a couple rental properties. I do too. We were kind of comparing notes on where we would buy. And we both were talking about how like Dripping Springs, a little harder to get to, a little further out, and Liberty Hill, further out, harder to get to, and have grown so much. It's not as desirable as an investor for us. Like I would rather own a 3-2, 1,500 square foot closer in Pflugerville, Round Rock, somewhere good schools, than be that far out. But if you're a first time buyer, and that's where you can afford and you get the most bang for your buck, and you want to buy a nice Perry home and be in good schools, and that's where you want to settle, great. But I think that if you're going to have to go back to the office, I think just like, you know, Dell built out in Round Rock and Austin had urban sprawl forever. And then finally started all coming back into downtown. And that's how I feel about the pandemic. Everyone moved to Texas. Oh, wow. Now I want a pool. Now I want a home office. Now I want all this land. And I feel like it's kind of settling back into this old norm, you know, and, you know, maybe people are saying no to more stuff, but a lot of people are ready to, like, a lot of people are just back in the same groove that they were prior to the pandemic. Maybe fortunately, maybe unfortunately, right? So I think I saw another question. Which of those are affected by first-time buyers? What are the biggest factors in the monthly payment? And so your monthly payment, PITI, right? Principal, interest. Why can't I think of the T? Insurance. Taxes. I'm like, why am I drawing such a here? Okay. So I always say the more you put down, and the better your interest rate will be and the better your credit score, you will have a better interest rate, right? So a lot of when you are getting pre-approved, they're going to be looking at your debt to income ratio. So sometimes paying things off and working on your credit score to get up is going to qualify you for a better interest rate. And a really good lender will take a look and tell you, hey, pay off this card or pay off your car, and you'll qualify for a whole half a point better, right? So that will affect your monthly payment. Now, I predict, and I've already seen it, I teach my clients how to protest their taxes. So this year, I mean, from 2020, there was a freeze from Travis County. So it stayed the same from 2019 to 2020. 2021 was crazy. And so everybody's taxes went up, and that hurt a lot of people. I mean, we're talking $200 to $400 increases a month. And then that was a lot for a lot of people passed along to their renter as well. So rents making Austin, again, less affordable, and rents going up. Now, I think we're supposed to have taxes decrease a little bit. Also, Austin energy is supposed to go up. So just keep that in mind. But taxes kind of coming down and the rates coming down. So depending on your area, the Austin average is 2.5, but you may have great schools, or maybe 2.2, maybe 2.3, totally depends. You always want to pay attention to the rate. What's the tax rate in that area? And I always tell people, when you're estimating and you're looking at houses and you're estimating what's my monthly payment going to be, don't base it off of the tax appraised value, base it off what you're going to pay. And the reason of that is, most of the time, like if you buy a house for $500,000, most of the time Travis County is the worst one, is a little bit behind. So maybe you're paying taxes on a $480,000 valuation, but you always want to make sure you cover your bases and you can still pay it if it's 30 to 50K increase. Now, your principal and interest, if you do a 30-year loan, that gives me another topic to talk about. If you do a 30-year loan, your principal and interest staying the same. Your rate doesn't change. Your payments going to be the same. The taxes are what adjust every year. And I was just talking to some clients about this. Then your bill comes out at the end of the year. And if you don't have enough in your escrow account, if you choose to escrow your taxes, they're going to pay it on your behalf. And then the next year, they almost double it. So let's say your taxes went up $200 per month. Your lender's now going to be collecting $400 per month to make sure that you don't have another shortage in your escrow account, and then it'll correct the following year. Probably went into way too much detail about that, but as kind of, just things to think about when you are looking for a home. But I always tell people, your lender doesn't know what they're valuing, what the county's going to value your house at. So when April, you get your new valuations, you go to traviscad.org, boom, your house is now worth $50,000 more. You have a homestead exemption in place. Great. So it can only go up 10% max. Okay. And then you can start paying a little extra into your escrow account so it doesn't end up short at the end of the year. So before, oh, I'm glad you like all the detail. So before your lender, how much you need to have in that escrow account by the end of the year. And then your, bill comes due in December. Something to note. So let's say you're buying a house. Let's say it's 2022, you're buying a house and you close in July. I'll talk about an escrow account for you, because it all depends on how much you put down. If you put down 20%, you do not have to escrow your taxes. Okay. If you put down less than 20%, the lender is going to require you to escrow your taxes. Okay. So when you have an escrow account, so if you closed July 15th, so from January 1 to July 15th, you're going to get a tax credit from the seller. Okay. And then, oh, she chilling? So then the tax bill at the end of the year, you're responsible for the whole year, but you already got a credit. But then your lender collected usually 3 months. Sometimes it's 6. It's whatever they require. So they put all this money in your escrow account so that you don't come up short at the end of the year. Let's see. And then I wanted to talk about 2 things. Buying down the rate. This is what we're seeing now in the market, and we're starting to see ARMs. So a traditional mortgage, there's conforming loan limits, right? So you do like a Freddie Mac loan, or you can only lend, I think it's the new amount is like $710,000. So if you're buying $1 million property, you're going to have 2 liens on the property, 2 loans on that property. It's called a jumbo loan. So you have a first lien and a second lien, unless you put enough down to go to conforming limits. What we're seeing now in the market is a lot of new loan products for people because they don't like how high the interest rates are, right? So something, if you don't want to do a 30-year fixed, we're seeing a lot of ARMs, an adjustable rate mortgage. We're seeing a lot of 7-year ARMs and 5-year ARMs. So maybe if this house is for you and you want a house for a few years and then you're going to sell it or you're going to rent it out, that may be a good option for you if you know it's not a long-term hold for you. So what an ARM is for 7 years, you'll have that rate, and then it will adjust after the 7 years to whatever the market is. But at any time, let's say in year 5, rates take a dip and they went from your 7% to, 5, you can refinance and go back into a 30-year, you can do a 15-year, something like that. My coworker and I were kind of talking about how we're probably going to start seeing 40-year ARMs, just like for cars, right? It used to be a 3-year loan, and now we're seeing 5 and 6-year car loans, all so people can afford more of what they want. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing that product. In this market right now, we are actually getting seller concessions for the first time. So I will answer your question in just a moment. So we're actually getting a lot of seller concessions. And so let's say I negotiated $10,000 from a seller. Now, you can take the $10,000 off the purchase price. That doesn't equate to that much. That's about $40 a month. Is that right? For every $1,000, $4. Yeah. So it's only a $40 a month difference in payment, maybe 50-ish. Or you could take that money and you can do what's called a buy down. So a lot of people are buying down the rates, and a lot of sellers are offering this now because, again, a lot of buyers were pre-approved back in March at 3.5%. And now this double jump is really affecting their monthly payments. So when you are negotiating, you could get money off the price, money towards your closing costs if you just want to bring less to the table, or buying down the rate means you might take a couple $1,000s, and for the first 2 years on your loan, you might only have it for 4.5%. And then after that year 2 is up, it's what you locked in at when you were buying the house, right? So if it was today, maybe 6.8%, that's what the loan adjusts to. But again, at any time the market kind of goes down, which it probably will around the election time, is when you would refinance and lock in. Something to remember too, is that rates change every day. And so while the Fed rates don't have the most impact, a lot of lenders will get ahead of it. So you'll notice that the Fed will announce they're going to be increasing rates on Monday. And then the lenders will go ahead and start building that into their, their margins right before that. Okay, let me see. Any recommendations on selling a 12-year-old house with foundation issues in this market? Fix first, then sell. Or put on the market and offer to deduct the price and or offer to pay down the rate? Great question. I kind of think it all depends on where it's at. It all depends on where it's at because, see, you said a 12-year-old house. I'm assuming it's probably on the east side. Is it a D.R. Horton build?
iPhone user, do you want to give some input for Ashley? You get customized advice from Ashley. No? Okay.
No worries. I'm happy to answer. I mean, with every answer, I'm always going to say, it kind of depends. Depends on where it is, depends on what the other competition is, and if it's a common thing in the neighborhood, which most of the time it is. You're out of your 10-year warranty, probably, if it's only a 12-year-old house. So what holds up better than a foundation report is an engineer report. So if you could get foundation bid done before and an engineer, if the engineer says, actually, yeah, this moved, but it's not going to move again and it's great, then I wouldn't touch the house. If it's pretty obvious and there's like a lot of cracks that need to be repaired inside and some paint, I would go ahead and do it. And if all your money is tied up in your home, you can, a lot of times, at least what I'll do for my clients a lot of times is, maybe I'll front the deposit or pay the deposit, and then you could work out a deal to pay the rest at closing. So, but the key obviously is going to be having it looking great and pricing it right, for sure. So I think as things become less affordable, right? Interest rates higher, so people are already spending a lot per month. They're not going to be willing to do a whole lot to the house. No, well, number one, no one has time for that anymore. Number two, no one has the energy or know-how or patience anymore. So most people are looking for something move-in ready, and move-in ready staged homes, statistically speaking, move a lot quicker. So that would be my suggestion on that. Okay, south near Westgate and William Cannon. Oh, I'm surprised. A newer house in an older neighborhood. Yeah, I would just get more information. So something that I'm really big on when I'm selling is you're going to get a stronger, more reassured buyer the more information you give. And if you're the type of seller where you put your house on the market and then you don't find out what's wrong with it until the inspection, that gives sellers so much anxiety, and I think you lose a lot of negotiation power. So if you're going to sell your house, pay the $400, $450, $500 to get a pre-inspection. So now you're being very forthcoming. Maybe you're like, hey, buyer, I fixed items A, B, C, and the rest I'm not willing to do, but I'm selling it as is. So now when they try to come back at you, oh, I want this fixed, that fixed, you're going to say, no, I already disclosed that to you. I'm not doing those repairs. So again, I think it's good to know everything. And when you see things that pop up, okay, oh, plumbing is bad, which also you have to remember that if your foundation company you're going to hire, I'm just going to throw out Level Best I like, and Breacher Foundation, BRUECHER. Those are two people that realtors will know and trust. But when you get somebody that when they Google the company and there's no reviews for it, the buyer's not going to be feeling as good and as reassured. You want somebody who's going to give you a good warranty and somebody who's going to do the plumbing test on the house afterwards, because foundation also usually moves up, messes up your plumbing, right? So if it's really old, you have cast iron, you're probably gonna have to redo that anyway. But PVC is a little bit more bendy, so sometimes with adjustments, it doesn't mess up your plumbing, so you don't have to get, but you do want to always get a hydrostatic test after too. When it comes to investing in a new build, you suggest getting a third-party inspector, even though the builder has their own. It's a 50-50. I don't think it hurts to get, so I'll say it out loud. The question is, when it comes to investing, do you suggest, in a new build, do you suggest hiring a third-party inspector, even though the builder has their own? I just don't think it could hurt. What's one more set of eyes on your house that you're buying, right? Now, the builder usually has their 1-year warranty. And so I usually tell clients, if you don't get one right before you close, then get one at the 11-month marker. And then just remember too, what the city of Austin requires, or city of, or county, or whatever, wherever the house is, and what the inspectors codes requires are two different things. So a lot of times what I tell my clients to do is we get a third-party inspection, we just hand it over to the builder. Here, it's usually not as much as a resale, right? And it's up to them if they choose to fix it, but most of the time they're going to fix those, all that information. What was the other question I missed up here?
There was a question a little bit further back from Anna. Okay, Anna's still on the call. With people wanting to be closer to downtown again, are you seeing home prices come down or up in Central Austin?
Still come down. Only because I don't like to call it a decline. It's just a correction, because it was just so obscene. It was crazy last year. I'm still tired from 2021. You know, the housing market was on fire. So it's just kind of correcting itself. So there's, I think, opportunities to be had. But again, it's 16% of homes right now are selling for list price or more. But I would say, I tell my sellers this right now, we're in the guinea pig stages of the market. So since July-ish or so, it's just kind of, we're all just testing. And I think once we have a few more months of closings under our belt, that will be more telling of where to price your home at. We'll have more comps. There's certainly not any appraisal issues, which is great. Don't have to worry about that happening. But if it's central, priced really well, I am still seeing multiple offers. We had some clients looking in the Rosedale area, and yeah, it was priced great, super cute, updated kitchen. You know, when it has all those things that you're kind of looking for, that a lot of buyers are looking for, it's still going to move if it's priced right. Which I typically say, and you know, I'm on my client's team. I'm trying to get as much money as possible, but we have such a savvy buyers market. We have so much information online now. Buyers know what they're willing to pay. And so it doesn't hurt to price lower and get multiples still. It might be a little slower. It might not be 3 days. It might be 11 days. You know, I had that happen earlier. My clients were like going crazy, like, oh my gosh. I'm like, guys, it's only been 11 days. It's okay. So, but when you're so used to the hype and the craze, it's hard to kind of bring it back down to what it was like. I can't even remember what it was like in like 2017, but that's kind of where we're at now.
So how often do you see that where the sellers or the buyers are using Zillow as kind of a point as for sales? Because I mean I've seen on Zillow my price of my home go down, fluctuate up and down a lot just in the last few years too.
Let me tell you what realtors think about Zillow. We hate it. We hate it. We don't like it. Zillow is using a lot of algorithms, kind of, they don't see the inside. They don't know that the HVAC is 2022, not 2010. They don't know, like, theirs is all kind of algorithmic without a lot of, thought or detail put into it. So I would say the best thing to do, you can look on Zillow all day long, but the best thing to do is when you're about to sell is analyze comps. And right now, comps are comparable properties. You want to look at what's pending for sure. What actually moved in this market and what is the condition? Like, can I go walk it with my realtor? And you want to look at last 30 days. In a market before that, we would look at the last 90 days, especially when there wasn't much inventory, but you want a really clear picture and you want to always look at what is most similar to your house. And then you kind of adjust from there. Do you have an extra bedroom? You're worth more. Do you back to a green belt? Maybe you get a little bit more premium. You have to pay attention to the actual upgrades. And that is what an appraiser does, not just the price per square foot, not just, oh, well, the neighbors was valued at this, because we all know it. Like there's a lot of times that look at the tax appraiser, look how far off they can be sometimes from the actual market value of your house. So, yeah. Margaret, what else was going to talk about?
Oh, Ashley, we missed the first foundation company recommendation.
Level best. Level best.
Level best, okay.
I can tell you who not to use. Done Right Foundation. It's more like done wrong. And I haven't had the terrible customer experience. I've even had people call me before, like, I saw your review on this company. I want to know more. And she was going through the same thing, like where they warrantied a bunch of work and then they didn't back it up. And the house shifted like a ton over the last, from the time, that they did the first work till the time it was time to sell. So it's important to hire. Sometimes you're going to spend more, but I always say you get what you pay for. So sometimes it's better to spend more and, get the return and get it done right and by somebody reputable than not. So yeah. Trying to think of like what else I'm seeing in the market or experiencing. So just, yeah, it's just, I think just a lot of same thing with the stock market, people just kind of sitting tight and watching. And there's plenty of really doomsday talk too. And I don't know. I kind of like look back and I'm like, we made it through 2008. This isn't like 2008. 2008 is when our whole nation was, completing fraud, like loan fraud. And so there's not going to be the only reason that housing is slowing down is because of inflation and interest rates. So. But I don't see them coming down anytime soon. Oh, recommendations for contesting property taxes to get the lowest value. Yes, I love using 5Stone. You can go online and sign up on their website and you put in your property address and then every year they'll automatically be on file. And if you want them to protest it for you, they will. Every year I've had really good luck with all my properties, like getting it down quite a bit, even the ones with the homestead exemption.
Ashley said that was 5Stone.
There's also Texas Pro Tax, but I use 5Stone, more local.
I have a question. It's kind of more about like the people that the clients that you work with. Are you seeing that people that come and work with you right now and they're looking to purchase a home or sell? When you say that people are kind of hesitating, they're not wanting to dive right in, is that from like personal experience with your clients or just sort of that's maybe the numbers are telling you that or something else.
Yeah. Not all three, right? I'm seeing it from the seller's end. I'm seeing it from my buyers. My buyers can be more picky now, and I'm encouraging it, right? Like 9 months ago, it was like, well, it has a roof and 3 bedrooms. I guess we'll take this one. And now I'm like, you guys want to change all this stuff? Let's just keep looking, So, I say there's no such thing as a perfect home. If you find 8 out of the 10 things that you really, really need or want, then that's probably your home. But if you're trying to change a bunch of things to make it perfect, unless it's in the perfect location, then it's probably not the right house. And with my sellers, what I'm seeing is, we always try to get feedback after every showing. So it is always important, I always say, to tell your agent exactly what you liked and didn't like. And a lot of things we can't help. But the things we can help, we try to mitigate before we even go on the market. I usually like to go pretty picture perfect, because the longer that house sits, the more people start to think, what's wrong with it? And you are more likely, if you start too high, all the time, you start too high, you're like, okay, well, I would list at 625, but I'd rather take 650. So it's like you sit at 650, and then when you finally reduce down to 625, it still isn't good enough. People still want a sale. So when you price it aggressively on the front end in the beginning, you're going to most likely get that and kind of create that, like, oh man, this is priced right and it has everything we want. Let's go for it. Because again, I think the buyers that are buying right now are more they're ready. They have to be. And it's not the same. So, but they are asking, a lot of people are asking for more concessions. I try to always go to, Pat, I will get to you in a second. I always try to go to, get as much as we can for our buyers. And when it's a seller, I try, with the sellers too, again, the bird in the hand is better than 2 in the bush. The right buyer will stay and hang on, but sometimes people need to feel like they have a win. So it's like, okay, well, we're going to counter back, but we'll give you the fridge, So that's another thing I always say, never put the appliances in there. Always use your appliances as a negotiation tool. All right, recommendations for trades for repairs on investment properties, HVAC, plumbing, flooring, handyman. Okay, I will say this right now. I have a friend who owns a wholesale HVAC company, and she's getting rid of gas systems. If you will email me and you have a gas HVAC system, I can get you a good deal on one right now, but you have to replace it before the end of the year. So HVAC, it's toughy. I have a hit or miss. Usually use precision heating or air, but I also have another one-man show. I like one-man shows for my short-term rental properties because I find that they're honest and a little bit more available with less red tape. Like, hey, this went out. Can you go check it out for me? And they'll do that. I've had good luck on Thumbtack for handymans. So usually when I find one, I hold on to him as long as I can. And then typically they get too busy and then I have to move on to somebody else. So Thumbtack's had some pretty good success for me because you can rate them and review them. You can kind of see their hourly. You can take pictures and upload what you need and they can give you a quote kind of on the spot. So if you haven't used Thumbtack, I like that. And it doesn't cost money like Angie's List does. For plumbing, I like P&P Plumbing. They've done probably half the homes in Northwest Hills cast iron replacements. And then I do most of my camera scope tests with them. Also, Peanut Plumbing is another one as well that's good. So, and G&M Plumbing. I've had really good luck with them as well. Flooring. That's a toughie. I do have a guy, but again, one-man show, kind of hardworking guy that will do it. So if you tell me, I'm happy to give you his information. So the trades are really hard to find. And so usually once I find a good one, I try to keep them in business and refer them as business as I can. And be candid, right? And give feedback. Hey, you did this install. Your guy left his toilet seat up in their bathroom and dirt all over the floor. You did a great job installing, but let's clean up after ourselves. You know what I mean? Because you only want them to get better, to keep out, helping you out and giving you good business. So I hope that was helpful. I forget this is on YouTube. So hopefully all these recommendations are still good a year from now. But yeah, when it comes to HVAC too, I always recommend getting a few bids because man, can the prices range. I mean, really with anything, right? And usually you want to go for kind of the middle, and don't be afraid to counter. Like, anytime my contractor gives me, he's like, oh yeah, I can do all of that for 10K. I'm like, how about 7,500? You never know what you can negotiate. Or I guess my motto, everything in real estate is negotiable. Any other things off the top of y'all's head?
Well, I just had a thought. Have you noticed if flipping has slowed down, where people like are buying houses and flipping them or buying them and like tearing them down and putting, multi-million-dollar house up in its place?
Yeah.
What have you noticed about that?
Yes, flipping has slowed down, but it's kind of funny how many, again, it kind of goes back to like the investors. Most flippers are using hard money anyway. So there's still a, 13% sometimes that will come due after 2 months. But I feel like the amount of spam, text, junk calls that I got all the time, like, do you have any dilapidated properties for us? Any properties for us, Ashley? Can we, they were always looking for these flip opportunities. That has significantly decreased. I get hit up like maybe once a month versus once a week now. So I do think the flipping game, which is actually kind of interesting because I'm kind of like, this is a perfect time to flip if you have the funds to flip. But I think because there's less of a frenzy to buy, there's a lot more reserved flippers who are like, because it's a great time to buy something, but I'm not much of the flipper mentality. I feel like there's more money in holding it and renting it than there is in flipping a house. So especially the headaches that come with the remodel. So you can do some tasteful updates and put in great renters and probably cash flow a little bit than than spending all that money and getting like maybe 40K out of it. So the key to flipping is the buy. It has to be a really, really good buy. And then actually I wanted to talk to that because again, my coworker and I, who was in the luxury market, we're kind of talking about this. We think we're going to see a big decline in those large communities where they have luxury, where they have a little section of gated, like I think of like Treviso way out there, kind of, I guess it's technically Leander. It's probably the zip, but it's, far. And I think that the homes maybe 850 or up in some of these larger communities might hurt. But then you look at Westlake with their, it's very insulated and they have low property taxes over there. Those neighborhoods are going to be just fine for the luxury market. And what I'm seeing is, she was just talking the other day, she got a brand new build under contract it was $3 million. When it's nice and updated, again, those homes and quality builds are still going to move and still going to sell at the end of the day. So I feel like location and how much something's being built out in the neighborhood and the areas surrounding, always looking at commercial trends is key for investing.
Any other questions?
Hopefully that was pretty helpful. Market's very interesting right now. I'd love to circle back in maybe spring and see, just what the market has, how has it shifted again? Is it the same? I think what's going to happen, I think once interest rates become a little less volatile, I think it's gonna be a little slow at the end of this year, and then things, as usual in Austin, typically pick up. But I always tell people, it's not like it's not like Austin's going anywhere. If you're priced right and you want to sell or you want to buy, it'll still happen. It's not like it's just flattened, right? There's still plenty of people buying houses, just not at the rate they were before.
I mean, I think it's really helpful to have these discussions. And of course, like we said before, if you are looking to get expert advice on your specific circumstance, definitely seek out someone that you can have that professional relationship with, because, you know, you need somebody to be the voice of sanity for you. Like Ashley's saying, you know, some folks are nervous, nobody wants to dive in, everybody's trying to wait and see what the market's going to do. But when you have somebody like that who's saying, okay, hey, let's look at your specific circumstances. What is it that you're trying to achieve? You know, there's no need to be nervous. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what might make sense for you in your specific situation. So that's really helpful.
And I would say when we, Pat, great question. When we talk about, like, when a seller wants me to sell, a lot of times I go to the house first and we just kind of walk through, and it's like, okay, here's real talk. This are all the things. And I always tell the seller, if there's anything that you absolutely don't want to do, let me know right now, because we're going to have to probably come up with a plan B. But we go through the house and we kind of talk about, okay, you're going to paint. No, you don't have to do the countertops, but maybe, yes, you will have to paint the cabinets. It'll totally depend, because a lot of it is smoke and mirrors, and it's all about having good photography. Pat, you asked, where did all the cash buyers go? Cash buyers were outbidding so many buyers, and it's kind of crazy because cash buyers were buying. I will say this, there was a good handful of cash buyers in the market because there were cash opportunities with companies like, you know, that were doing bridge loans, or I know some of my clients were, you know, Charles Schwab was like, okay, here's the cash, and then you're going to refinance this into a mortgage. So anyway, I think the people who are going to hurt the most, or people who should not sell, I should say, are those who bought in cash and anyone really who bought in the last 2 years. I think you need to wait it out. If you're going to sell, I would rent it out. I'd rent out rooms in your home. I would supplement if you have to, and wait, because you're not going to get the return. If you bought at the peak of the market just a year or two ago, it's not the best time to turn around and try to sell. I just had this conversation with a client who paid cash, top of the market, beautiful house, bigger than everything else in the neighborhood. And I'm like, just hold, because you guys bought at you know, they're going to get it. It's just right now it's kind of leveling down. So might as well kind of still make payments, have someone else pay off pay down that equity, and then go. But I don't know where the cash buyers went. You would think that more people would buy cash now, but when the stock market's doing good, a lot of people don't want to pull out their money to buy houses. Or they will when it's doing good. They hold off when it's not doing as good. Stock market affects so many other, places as well. Do I pre-inspect prior to listing? Do you share the report of their specifics? So in Texas, if you are a seller and you know these defects on your house, you are legally required. And that's why I say I like to get ahead of it. I'm usually a problem solver. So, okay, all right, so what? We have some foundation issues. We got this plumbing we got to fix. We'll get somebody over there to fix it, or we disclose and price it correctly. It's usually better to just fix it. And people love a new HVAC or hot water heater, or, oh, this work was just done in May and here's the warranty, and look online, this, company was great. So, yes, I do pre-inspect. I don't pre-inspect for anything that's just a few years old. But usually anything older than like 5 years, I'm like, let's just go ahead. It's been a while. You never know what's going to pop up. So I am a big proponent for that. I think it will also give you, it gives my sellers a peace of mind, because there's nothing worse than feeling good. Oh, we got an offer, we got a buyer. And then it's like, boom, now they want $15,000 in repair. So it's like, you might as well just get ahead of it and know what they're going to ask for, and do a $500 fix, or whatever, versus take money off the price later. Just curious what you think about homes in Sun City. Would you expect there to be more cash buyers there who would not be affected by the higher interest rate, since most want no mortgage at that point? Great question. And just so some of y'all know, Sun City is a 55 and up community in Georgetown. I don't know. I think that, there's a reverse mortgage, which you can do at the age of 62. You are correct that, most people, like I'm working with someone right now who's just ready to sell and then take cash and buy something smaller and not have a payment at all and just have to pay taxes and just retire and enjoy that. I I guess my answer to that is I don't have a thought on it. What do you think about homes in Sun City, which expect there to be more cash buyers? I'm not sure, to be honest. Yeah. I would have to look at the data on there and just kind of see what's sold. If you want to email me, I can run some numbers and see. I can probably give you an idea of the last homes and how many sold for cash versus how many had a mortgage. But I'm not sure on that one. What else was I going to say? I feel like I don't know. I feel like Molly is my dog's name. So if I whisper her name, she thinks there's a squirrel outside. Oh, she heard the word squirrel. And so she starts looking for it. I recommend you all buy the picnic table from Amazon and put it on your tree. It is like the most entertaining thing to watch the squirrels sit on the picnic table and eat stuff. And that's when she goes bonkers and barks. So it's pretty funny. She's chill though. Anyway, thank you. Again, I could talk real estate all day, and I always tell people, like, I don't drink coffee, but I drink juice. And if you ever want to like get together, do a phone call, Zoom, go to Juice Land and talk. I'm open to it. Just let me know. So hopefully that was all helpful.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's helpful to have the recording too, because it's just, again, it's kind of like a pin in the timeline, and then maybe we can circle back around and get some thoughts in the spring.
I know.
Are there any last questions?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Mel. Yeah, that's sweet to see the feedback. Are there any questions before we wrap up? I'm sure that folks are starting to get some dinner on the table.
Yeah. I think that's about it. It was nice. Thanks for y'all's participation.
Yeah, Ashley, how can people reach out to you?
Mainly the gram. I heart the ATX at I heart the ATX. So I do a lot of realtor tips on there that you can find. I do Q&As. I talk about remodeling. I talk about short-term rentals. I talk about my mistakes, things I've learned, all sorts of things. So you can follow me there and message me. I'm usually pretty responsive. And then LinkedIn, and then my email. I work at Realty Austin, for those of you who didn't know, but yes, it's just my first and last name at Realty Austin. If y'all have any other additional questions, always happy to answer.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks again, Ashley. We really just,
No problem.
I mean, I don't think that I'm speaking just for myself when I say I really appreciate your candidness. And also it's kind of cool to know that you have an Instagram. I think I remember that from last time, but you know, if there are more, if there's more content that I can see. Yep.
Yeah. So I tried to save it. A lot of the content saves I try to put on highlights, so you can always go back and look at like buyer tips, seller tips, things like that. So yeah. Cool.
Perfect. That's helpful.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. It's nice that you know about so many different areas and can address them all.
I've been selling a long time, and I don't really niche myself. I just say I go where the people need me to go. And it's not rocket science. It's just data. It's just analyzing a bunch of data, and just doing this for so long, you kind of see the same things, and you know, people reading and data. So, but
well, we really appreciate it. It was really fun talking with you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much, and y'all have a good evening.